We're talking about big problems that made climbing super hard and dangerous. From bad weather to huge crowds, it was a really challenging time. So why did this year stand out? Let's dive into the wild ride that was 2023 on the world's tallest mountain. Experts are saying that 2023 was the deadliest year ever on Mount Everest. A lot of people have died, and the main reason is the weird weather. This weird weather is mostly because of climate change. Famous mountaineers are worried about Mount Everest. Everest is the highest mountain in the world, standing at 8,848 meters. Nowadays, people treat it like a tourist spot. Many rich thrill seekers with little climbing experience pay over £48,000 to be guided to the top. Alan Arnett, who climbed Everest in 2011 and writes about its conditions, says this year has been chaos. The main problem is that inexperienced climbers push themselves too hard and don't turn back when they should. This leads to many deaths. Some guide companies don't require any experience. They tell climbers, "We will teach you everything you need to know." But when these clients get into trouble, they can be left alone to save the lives of the guides. This year, several climbers were abandoned on the upper part of the mountain, and some are still missing. There's also worry about Everest Base Camp, which is on the Khumbu Glacier. With more people at base camp, it's becoming unstable and unsafe. Global warming has already made the conditions dangerous. In the past 30 years, Everest's glaciers have lost 2,000 years' worth of ice. To meet the demands of about 400 climbers each year, around 1,500 people come to base camp during the season. They have luxury facilities like massages and evening entertainment. Helicopters are often used to reach base camp now. Last year, officials in Nepal suggested moving base camp to a lower spot off the thinning glacier. They are also thinking about changing the rules so that trekkers can't spend the night at base camp and have to stay lower down. However, the Sherpa community, who help climbers, are against this. They say it would add 3 hours to the climb and make it more dangerous. Instead of moving base camp, they want to learn how to manage it better. They are unsure where they could move base camp to. Another big problem is the huge amount of rubbish left on Everest. Although there's a 3,200 pounds garbage deposit that is returned if climbers bring back 8 kg of rubbish, the mountain is still full of trash, especially plastic, at the end of each season. So far, 12 people have been confirmed dead while climbing Everest this season, and there are 5 more people who are missing. They've been missing for at least 5 days, so people are really worried and think they might not make it either. The Himalayan database, which keeps track of who dies on the mountain, gave us these numbers. A person named Yubaraj Katiwara, who is the director of Nepal's tourism department, said, "We lost 17 people on Everest this season." He explained that the weather has been very unpredictable this year, which means it changed a lot and wasn't good for climbing. This is mostly because of climate change, which is making the weather on the mountains more dangerous. This year's death count on Everest might be the worst ever, just like what happened in 2014 when 17 people died too. Most of the people who died in 2014 were Sherpas, who are local people that help climbers, and they died in a big avalanche. Usually every year about 5 to 10 people die on Everest, but in recent years, more and more people have been dying. It's a really tough situation, and everyone's hoping it gets better. One of them was Jason Kennison. Jason was 40 years old and worked as a mechanic in Australia. He had a really tough time before because he hurt his spine. But he worked hard and got better, so he decided to climb Everest. He made it to the top, but sadly, He couldn't make it back down. Then there was Peter Swart, a doctor from Canada. And we also lost 3 Nepalese Sherpas. Sherpas are the local guides who help climbers get up the mountain. These 3 Sherpas were caught in a big avalanche in April, and they didn't survive. There are also some people who are still missing. One of them is Suhajda Zillard from Hungary. Suhajda was climbing all by himself, without any Sherpa guide or extra oxygen. Another climber who's missing is from India and Singapore. People think this person might have fallen off the mountain. This year was especially bad, even worse than 2019. Back in 2019, a lot of people were trying to climb Everest at the same time. There were so many climbers that they had to wait up to 12 hours to get to the top. It was really crowded and dangerous. Some climbers even had to climb over people who were hurt or had died. That year, 11 people lost their lives. The Nepal government has been getting a lot of criticism lately. Why? Because they gave out 479 permits for climbing Mount Everest this year. That's more than ever before. Each permit costs about £12,000. This is a big deal for Nepal because the country really needs the money, so the government doesn't want to give out fewer permits. A government official named Katiwada said it's not too many permits. He explained that this year, people had more time to climb because the weather was good for a longer period. He said this meant there was no overcrowding on the mountain. But here's the problem. More people are dying while trying to climb Everest. This is happening just as we celebrated the 70th anniversary of Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay's first climb to the top of Everest. Their climb started a huge trend. Since then, over 10,000 people have climbed Everest, and more people want to do it every year. Ang Norbu Sherpa, who is the president of the Nepal National Mountain Guide Association, thinks there are too many permits. He says this is hurting the environment on the mountain. Sherpa also mentioned that the type of people climbing has changed. It used to be only very experienced climbers, but now many beginners want to reach the top of Everest. Many inexperienced climbers tried to reach the top, leading to accidents and deaths. This year, Everest saw more climbers than ever, creating big problems like overcrowding and trash. Sherpas, who guide and help climbers, had a hard time too. The situation on Everest is getting worse each year. To make climbing safer and protect the mountain, everyone needs to think carefully about how to manage and take care of it better in the future.